Hello everyone, hopefully you can hear us and see us. We'll be starting in just a second. Got a few bits to talk about today.
I got a cat somewhere playing with something and I don't know where. I just hear the noises.
My favorite thing about Dan's office is from the camera it looks okay, but if you pan down even just a few inches, it's chaos. His floor is a sea of boxes and devices.
Oh, there it goes. There go the boxes. It's actually been kind of picked up. It's not as bad. I didn't pick it up though because someone else in this household got very fed up with the way my office looked.
I like how it annoys her, like even though she doesn't have to go in there or ever see the room.
Yeah, exactly. That's how bad it is. Yeah, I got to redo the office though. At some points, I got to put up lights and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
Recorder sound. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. All right, that sounds good. Boop 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 boo. This is gonna be the Razer podcast, apparently.
Yeah.
Let me minimize that. And bring that up. Show notes. All right, I'm going to send out the tweet. All right, tweet is out. Let me tweet it from my own account. All right, that is good to go. Voice recorder is up. I am now recording.
I'm now recording.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 298 for February 3rd, 2023. Hey everyone, Daniel Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. We got a lot of stuff to talk about this week, including, well, Windows 11 news as always, but there's been some cool updates to that widget panel that's coming. That's going to be kind of fun to talk about. I'll share Razer's $280 mouse, which I actually have here in front of me, which is pretty wild. I'll explain why it's $280 and if it's worth it, which is kind of a fun question, but I'll put it all into context and explain it. Microsoft and AI are big. So we're just going to kind of cover some of the news that's been happening with ChatGPT, OpenAI, some of my thoughts on it, some recent announcements. There's a lot happening on AI that's it's going to be a big deal. And I think we're going to be hearing a lot more of this in the coming weeks from Microsoft. So we'll go over some of that. Samsung had its event this week, so we'll briefly talk about the new phones, but more importantly, its new laptops. They have, I believe, 5 of them coming. In fact, I have one that's about to be delivered today, which will be kind of fun. And for you number pad freaks, you'll be actually excited about this announcement because, well, number pads. Also, we'll go over some of our reviews. We had quite a few. This is Razer month, by the way, in February, because the company is just releasing so many products ahead of everybody that January, February are pretty slow. So we've been reviewing those. So we have the Leviathan speakers, which I talked about a couple of weeks ago. That got reviewed. We did review Hi-Fi Rush, the new game that's on Xbox and on PC. That's been making a lot of news, and we'll talk about that because I've actually played it. I'll go over a little bit more of the Razer Edge. I wrote an editorial about why I like it more than my Steam Deck and my experience with it for the last week. And I just got the 5G version in, which is really kind of cool, actually. And then we'll go over the thing of the week and any other news that we can think of in the meantime. Other than that, Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I'm feeling pretty good. January's finally over. I feel like January lasts 10 months, but it's finally done. And
it's a long month. That like 5th week comes in, and you're like, "Where's my paycheck?"
Yeah, it's a horrible, long, cold month. But we're finally in February now, so things are, at least in the UK, can't we? Well, in the northern hemisphere, it's getting lighter later. And it's just I'm feeling better, which is nice.
Bro, I hate to do the bro thing because I hate people who say bro. Especially you people who are like under 20, you use it way too much. But I'm going to use it here, bro. You don't understand how cold it is right now. Well, I'll have to convert this, I guess, for you. Right now for Americans, it's 11 degrees Fahrenheit where I am.
It's 11 degrees centigrade here.
Yeah, so that's in centigrade is minus 11 degrees.
Oh dear.
And that's the temperature. The wind chill is minus 2 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, come on, being minus 19 degrees Celsius.
Why is it so cold there?
That's the warm part. It's supposed to, by tomorrow morning, we're supposed to have our wind chill at minus 35 degrees Celsius. Or sorry, minus 35 Fahrenheit, which is minus 37 degrees Celsius.
That's crazy. I don't think I've ever felt that in my life.
Like, it's been cold for the last couple of days, and I'm okay with it being cold if there's no wind. It's just like, all right. But yeah, it's like we have winds going like 35 to 50 miles an hour. Like, that's just painful. So it's unusual. It's for where we are here in Massachusetts, it's the very rare. It's the Arctic thing that's going on. So. And I got to walk a dog, apparently. We'll see how much she likes that kind of weather. But they're like, yeah, if you spend more than 10 minutes outside, you can get frostbite. I'm like, oh, man, come on. Anywho, I don't think you'll be getting that weather, so I don't think that's how the polar vortex thing works. But yeah, just a heads up. Anywho, let's get though to the real news. Windows 11, we had a couple of insider builds, and there was actually some exciting stuff this week with those widget panels as they keep getting new stuff in it. So why don't you give us a rundown of what happened?
Yeah, so the widgets panel was the sort of star of the show this week for the dev channel. Microsoft announced or unveiled 2 new widgets in addition to the widget last week, which I think we talked about was the Facebook Messenger widget. That was announced last week. This week, they announced Spotify and phone link widget. So you can now sort of see your most recently played playlists as well as recommendations from Spotify, I guess, and you can actually launch into those playlists straight through the widgets panel into the Spotify app, which is really nice. And then there's also the new phone link widget, which basically gives you a very quick overview of your phone's status within the widgets panel. It gives you your sync status, your signal, your battery percent, as well as most recent notifications. Shows 1, 2, or 3 depending on the size of the widget you have set, and then you can also clear your notifications through that widget as well. So really handy, really nice sort of additions to the widgets panel recently. I am curious to see how like big this gets, because it's nice to see Spotify and Facebook Messenger in there. They're both third-party widgets, and I would, by the end of this year, like where will we be? Will we have loads of third-party widgets? Will things like WhatsApp be in there? Will Adobe maybe be in there, or Skype, which I would know is technically not third-party, but you get the point. Slack. Would love to see all of those in there, and then honestly, I would really like to see the ability to be able to actually drag those widgets out of the panel and pin them to the desktop. That I think is vital for the success of this thing. Otherwise, what is the point, right? Because I still think I'm not going to use these still because they're in the widgets panel. That's basically what it comes down to for me. I need to be able to see them all the time on the desktop. What are your thoughts, Dan, on the widgets panel so far?
So I'm really glad that they're adding these features to this, right? Like, I think these are needed, and let's be clear, like, these are like kind of significant ones, right? Spotify is pretty awesome, and having Outlook and stuff like that. Like, these are kind of the top tier widgets you'd want. Sure, we want other ones too, but like if I had to pick immediate ones, like these are the good choices. That said, I still have an issue with I rarely mouse over to the widget panel.
Yeah.
And so, and I've seen others complain about this on Twitter too. Is that, well, not even complain. It's just so much as remarking. And it's not that I don't like the widget panel, but for some reason, I just don't mouse over it as much. And I don't know if it's because of its location. Like, actually, I think if you can't move it, right? You can turn it off, but you can't move it.
No, you can't move it. You can turn it off. You can make it full screen, but that's about it.
So, like, if I was able to move it over and just have it as like a taskbar icon, maybe near search or whatever, I would definitely probably use it more.
Oh, you think? Wow. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I actually think it's that. I think it's because that's a mouse all the way over to the corner, which sounds hilarious, like
Yeah.
like it's running a mile. Um, but for some reason, I just don't. My mouse doesn't go over there, and it's always near start. It's near search. I'll use that. But if I had that weather little icon even more in the center, I could just move it wherever I want it. I'd probably use it more. So Microsoft, if you're listening, just give us that option.
Yeah.
I think I'd be really interested to see if that would improve user engagement with it. I think it would. It certainly couldn't hurt. Like, I
Right.
can't see how it would make user engagement worse, uh, especially since you can just turn it off.
It's
So,
interesting. If you set your taskbar alignment to left, it does actually put that weather icon into like a normal icon for the
right.
rest of this stuff, which is really interesting. So yeah, they've already clearly coded that functionality. Just give us the
Yeah.
option to move it back even with the icon centered. But yeah, like I said, maybe one way to solve that is to allow users to drag individual widgets out onto the desktop, because then you could just have them always on there regardless of where your mouse is, which would be really nice. Obviously, that flies in the face of them wanting to actually showcase news to you. Half the reason why the widgets panel exists is because they want to push the whole Microsoft News MSN thing through there, and being able to drag the widgets you want out of there would basically reduce the widgets panel usage to zero, I imagine, because not many people are going to click in here for headlines. Although I say that, I think we all tried to convince ourselves that we're not interested in the news, but deep down we all secretly open this thing and go, oh wow, this headline makes me want to click. I keep seeing one. It's one about Jennifer Aniston, and I don't care about celebrities or Jennifer Aniston or anybody, but the way the headline's written, it's like I want to click on that article and see what this is talking about. I haven't clicked on it yet because I just simply refuse, because the article headline was written in a deliberate way to make me want to click on it, and I'm not clicking on it. I'm not giving them the satisfaction. But I think, like I said, deep down, and we all sort of see these and go, well, I actually am interested in that. This news feed is smart as well. Over time, it has sort of conformed to my likes. So a lot of the things I see in here are stuff I'm interested in. And it's like, oh, I guess good to know. I'm glad to see that that's doing that, or this show is doing this, or this actor's coming back for that. Yeah, like it's addictive in a bad way.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I love MSN News. Like, it is like a time wasting news, but like once it starts learning what you like and what you're clicking on, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like tabloid stuff, but when I want to kill some time and just read about like dumb celebrity news, or things happening in movies that I'm interested in, even MMA things, like, it actually does a pretty good job. And I do find myself clicking and opening your articles, and it's a good reading experience because of the way, yeah, there's still some ads that pop up, but it's not nearly as like going to those websites where you're just kind of bombarded with stuff. Like, the reading format is really good. Plus, if you're into like real news, international, national news from major publications, it bypasses the paywall for you and formats it, which is kind of cool too. So I'm actually a big fan of the MSN News, panel and all that kind of stuff. I think it's pretty clever, and I think it's going to get smarter with the AI stuff, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah. So that is the sort of the main headline for this week's build, which was 25290. This will likely roll out to base channel and in production quite soon, I think, because these are quite easy for them to backport. There was also an update to the start menu where they're now testing something that they call badging on the user profile icon within the start menu. So you see, if you click in the start menu, there's your little profile picture and your name. They're going to sort of they are currently testing rather, sort of putting notifications or little prompts in there for things that they think you might want to set up. And so, for example, in their demo here, they have an option that shows what they're called backup your files. If you don't have OneDrive backup set, it will pop up there and you'll be able to click in and set up the backup stuff there. But that's basically all the notable stuff for the dev channel this week. The base channel build also got a build, but there's nothing really notable in there. The only real notable thing here is that they don't say this specifically, but I'm pretty sure the contents of the base channel currently are basically locked in for the next Moment update, which is supposed to be finalized this month as far as I'm aware, supposed to roll out next month in the optional monthly patch, which I think rolls out in the second half of the month, and then I think it will be GA'd in April. So Moment 2 is basically done at this point. It's more or less feature complete. So if you were interested in what's coming in that, take a look at the base channel. So far, it will basically consist of the updated taskbar with tablet mode improvement. So it does that thing where it minimizes if you're using it on a tablet. You've also got search in the task manager. You've got a few new additional settings in the settings app, such as energy recommendations. And a number of other quality of life improvements, including hopefully this widget stuff, which will be rolling out to the beta channel, I think, very shortly, because you can already backport it from dev channel to the beta channel using the Apex or the what is it? It's not an Apex, it's MSIX maybe. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. And that is your update on Windows for the week.
Very nice. Before we continue, I should mention for those curious, if you're watching the video podcast, either live or later on our YouTube channel, I am using the new Razer Kaio Pro Ultra webcam, which I got earlier this week. This is I believe, $299 webcam. So they've had the Kaio Pro, and now they have the Kaio Pro Ultra. And so, as the name implies, this is the top tier version, and it has a serious lens in it. It's the largest sensor ever in a webcam, is their new kind of record for here. And that's important, right? So the goal of this, and I am cheating a little bit. I am still using GeForce Experience, GeForce Broadcast to blur my background. Maybe next time I could turn it off too, and you can kind of see. This is supposed to kind of give a more natural blur. It won't be nearly as intense as the GeForce, mostly just because the distance between my head and the back wall isn't that great. So I just turned it off, and it'll go live. But you do see a slight blurring there.
Yeah. So
this is supposed to be a little bit more like DSLR quality. But hopefully you're watching it. I haven't really changed the settings, So there is software with Razer Synapse, of course, but and there are a few. They actually have quite a lot of settings in it and stuff like that. But I haven't really tweaked anything too much. Or this is kind of the natural way it looks. I think it's pretty impressive in terms of the color balance and accuracy. The sharpness will be tougher for you guys to test because we are broadcasting at full HD. But it's something that's going to be compressed and everything like that, so it's a little bit harder to distinguish.
It still looks great. That might be the best webcam you've used so far. It just looks very natural. Very. It doesn't look webcammy. It looks like a camera, which is, I think, their goal, right? So Razer, if you're listening, can you send me one as well so we can both use it? That'd be awesome.
Yeah, exactly. This does like full 4K, all that kind of jazz. It's massive. It is rather big.
Does it have its own ring light? Or is that not?
No ring light.
No, okay.
No. So that was the Kaio, I think it is, or the Kaio Pro has a ring light. So instead of a ring light, though, this has since it's a round cylinder-like camera, you twist the front portion of the camera, and it has a full iris that closes, and that acts as a privacy shutter, which is really nice. So it's like built into it, so you don't need to slap like a lens cap on that you may lose or something like that. So it's really cool. But yeah, sorry, Zach, though, but it does have that one flaw. It doesn't have Windows Hello.
I know. That kills me.
So that's the one downside. They can only jam so much in it. It's $300 already, which is pretty expensive. But
a lot of people these days have like a Windows Hello webcam next to their main one just for the login, and then they use the main one for everything else. I might have to start doing that.
Or get a fingerprint reader or something like that. But yeah, what's surprising here, and it's that I've reviewed and tried the other Razer cameras, and they're fine.
Yeah,
they were never really great. The one with the ring light was cool because no one else had done that before, and that's helpful. But in terms of the actual image quality and the software, I was never blown away. It was never my top recommendations. It was like okay. So I was like, all right, now they got a new one, but this one is just like, nothing I think touches this. And it's not relying on a lot of software to, make this image look good, which I think a lot of people would be interested.
That natural bokeh is actually really nice. I prefer that versus the simulated one
GeForce
you were just using.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll leave it on. The GeForce when I had it on was set more to a mid-range blur too, so versus low. Oh boy, doggy wants to go outside now because it's 1 o'clock.
Of course.
But Abby, no, we're not going out. Stop. Go away. So I just want to get that out of the way. I will be reviewing this camera separately, so I'll be doing screenshots and all that kind of jazz. But the TLDR is like, if you're looking for the best webcam for streaming, office use, whatever, you just want the best, this is it. Like, I mean, there's really not much else to say.
How much was the webcam? I don't know if you mentioned it.
$299.
Ooh, not cheap.
Nope. But they have, the best lens, the largest sensor, and all that
Yeah,
stuff
no,
in
it is
there.
the
So
best.
that's,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's supposed to compete with using a DSLR setup, right? So some
You're
people do
right.
that. They set up
Yeah.
their camera. Even I never bothered with that because that's just
It,
way too much
that's a
work. You have
that's
to
a big
worry about,
thing. That's a big thing with streamers. I see a lot of Twitch streamers
right?
who have that sort of DSLR setup.
Yeah. And I mean, I could almost understand like if that's all you do, but it's a pain to set up. It has to be on a tripod. It's heavy. You have to
Yeah.
worry sometimes about it overheating on some
Yep.
cameras. So there's, a lot of issues here. Plus, it's expensive. Like if you already have the camera, cool. But if you have to go buy one, 390
Yeah.
or 299 is way cheaper than doing
Yeah.
that setup. And this is literally plug and play. It's just a Type C cable, so much easier to do. But yeah, look for that review. So let's go on to other Razer stuff, right? So Razer announced, and not many sites had access to this mouse. It's called the Razer Viper Mini SE or Special Edition, and I'll have it right here. Yeah, what's kind of cool
Wow.
about not having to use broadcast is you can, I don't have to
Actually show
auto
things.
blur
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, I can actually show things. Um, so it's $279 for the mouse, 280
Oof.
bucks. And it's not limited edition. It's just, I would say, limited production. And you may be asking yourself, why? First of all, why does it cost $280? Second, why would they make it? Both valid questions. So the reason why it's so expensive is because, first of all, it weighs 49 grams. To put that in perspective, their previous lightest mouse ever was the Razer Viper Pro 2, I think it was 61 grams. So they kind of blew past that record. And this thing is so light, like it doesn't feel hollow. It just feels fake almost. I don't know it's hard to describe. The way they did that was obviously they have these holes in it. Um, but and you see that a lot of companies will do this, but if they did it with plastic and still try to attain that lightness, the structural integrity would not be good. So when
Right.
you would grip the mouse and all that, it could easily crack, right, with these fine lines and stuff like that. So they had to switch to a new material. So they're using magnesium alloy. So this thing is technically metal. It doesn't feel like metal because the way magnesium works, it feels almost more like a plastic, but no, it's metal. So this thing is actually very strong. And magnesium alloy is tricky to work with. And so how they make this is they have to first create the mold for these parts, and then they have to inject the magnesium alloy into it, like fill it up, and then it's just like a mold, right? And then they have to crack the mold open and pull out their pieces. So every time they make this mouse, they have to create and destroy a mold for it. So that's one part. Um, so you have to create the mold. You have to remove all the runners and the little bits from it when you do that. Then you put the magnesium, then you break it, and then you get the parts. And then I forgot all the words. Sorry, here, let me see if I can explain, because I don't know a lot of the engineering stuff here. Give me a sec, because I wrote about it.
It's a weird looking
Oh, yeah.
mouse. I'll say that much.
Yeah. So it's, injected magnesium alloy. Okay. Then the newly created mouse chassis is CNC machined. Then they smooth it out. Then they polish it to make it look nice. Then it's passivated, which is a treatment. Then it's painted, and then they have to assemble it. And so it's a big process. I mean, it's a lot of hard work to make this. And that's one reason why it's super expensive. It's also, of course, because of its price, packed with all of Razer's top tier technologies, which are absurd technologies, right? It's a 30,000 DPI, which it's like, if you ever tried that, that's basically if you're running like an 8K display and you're gaming, like that's where that would come in. If you ever tried it on a full HD, it's hilarious. Like you move it a millimeter and the mouse is off your screen. It has that. It has up to 60 hours battery life. Of course, it's wireless. It has the hyper polling thing in there, which is 4,000 hertz, which again for polling is like 4 times as high as any other top tier gaming mouse. Obviously, it's super light. You have the regular PFTE feet on the bottom, but you can pull these off, and it comes with Gorilla Glass 3 feet that you can put on it. So if you're using it on a smooth surface,
So it
soft
glides.
surface, yeah, it glides even more.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just like everything about it is totally absurd. It also comes in basically like a watch box that's real. It's like a faux leather watch box and it has a metal thing. You open it and the mouse is just presented there. So I'm saying all this stuff. Obviously, the lightness matters for pro gamers. Basically, the lighter the mouse is, the faster you can move your hands, and less tired you're going to get after hours of playing. And that's why there's such a race to make these the lightest mouse, basically. All right, so why would they make this though? Like, I mean, who's going to buy this thing, right? So you maybe think like, like you're not going to go to Best Buy and see this on the shelf. And they know this isn't meant for your average consumer. This is meant for your top tier 1%er who has a lot of money.
Yeah.
And just wants the best. And so I make the analogy in the article, basically like if you go up to people on the street and you're like, what's the best watch? 9 times out of 10 people will be like Rolex, because everybody knows Rolex. Anybody who knows watches know what Rolex is really good at is marketing. Because don't get me wrong, Rolex are great watches, but their marketing department is very, very good, which is why everybody knows Rolex. But if you were actually to talk to watch nerds, they would be like, oh, AP is really good, or Richard Mille, however you pronounce it. There's another level to watches where like a Richard Mille watch, some of them will go for $1 million, right? Which is way above any Rolex. And it's just like, and they look goofy too. They're like the way they're assembled and their design is just like very strange. But it's what's called high couture, fashion and artistry, basically. That's kind of what this is. It's the same with like, you have your Lamborghinis and your Porsches, but then you have your supercars out there that are even like, more rare. This is meant to show off Razer's ability to make an absurd, highly precision made mouse that no one else in the world is going to make, right? No one else is going to do this because it's expensive to do. It's hard to do. And Razer, though, has the community, though, who will probably actually buy this. So
I assume it would be very popular with the sort of professional esports crowd, the people who go to those competitions and which are streamed and super popular. Like esports is a real sort of thing now. I assume this mouse would be super popular with that crowd.
Yeah, and I'm sure, some of them will probably, be gifted it, all that kind of stuff. But it's a statement piece. That's what it is. It's a statement piece. It's meant to be like this. So they know they're not going to sell, tens of thousands of these things. Of course, and even the production of it, like I said, it's limited, meaning like it's hard to make, it's hard to keep in stock. So they're going to be doing occasional drops of it. And I think the first drop is, I have it in the article, I think it's coming up on next Saturday, the 11th, February 11th.
And I bet they'll sell out. I bet they will.
Oh, yeah, they probably will. Yeah, because I mean, Razer does have this like hardcore audience, and a lot of them have money. Don't forget, a lot of people are older, gamers and all that. Or if you're a Twitch streamer and you're pretty famous, this is pocket change for you. It's no big deal. But so I think it's cool. I like when companies go to the extremes and create something that's just like a statement piece. HP has done this before. Remember they created that Cube computer years ago? Or they had the backpack VR thing. Like sometimes companies just create stuff just to be like, we're just going to kind of go nuts with the engineering. We know we're not going to sell a ton of these things, but we're putting it out there.
Is really.
Huh? Yeah, Duo is kind of like that too. So kudos to Razer though. I think it's wild. But like I said, the one thing it doesn't have is RGB. There's no LEDs because LEDs would weigh it down.
True Razer product if it's got no RGB.
I know. It doesn't even have Bluetooth. You know why? Because Bluetooth would be beneath the performance ability of this mouse.
That's
it's not
right.
like,
it doesn't make sense.
Well, why would you use Bluetooth?
I do like Razer. I wish Razer. I know they've done this. They've dabbled with this, but I'd love to see Razer expand into more sort of productivity accessories and laptops. I know they've got the Razer Book. I know they do it here and there. But I would love to see it like take off more because every time I've seen, because they did a keyboard, I can't remember what it's called now. It was like a productivity focus keyboard.
The Pro, it was a Pro keyboard. Yeah,
I love the look of it, but sadly they didn't have the tactile version in the UK layout, so I couldn't buy it because I didn't want linear. Like, get away from me with your linear keyboard. I want tactile. But like I especially I love the quartz color. They call it quartz, like the lighter color quartz. They do. I love that color.
The quartz, like the pink version.
Yeah.
So they're dabbling in that stuff, right? Yeah, you're right. They have like a series of keyboards and stuff and they teamed up with Human, I think it was called Human something. They're dabbling in it. I think they're trying to see if they can kind of go into that. They've released headphones, like they have their I forgot the name of them now. They have a pair of headphones that doesn't have like the three-headed snake is just like a very faint black printing on it. You can barely see it, but they're not meant for gamers. They're these high-end
Yeah.
THX headphones, and I use them regularly. They're really nice. But again, they're trying to aim it for the more prosumer market versus the gamer. So they're
Yeah.
definitely exploring going into those categories. But if people aren't buying them, they're not going to continue with it. So, but they are trying to expand their portfolio. And this year we were just talking about this internally. Last year was an all right year for Razer, but a lot of the stuff they released was just kind of like your basic updates and all that. But this year, they just are coming out with some really, really nice, cool products, which we'll talk a little bit about later. And I got to remember to turn off the alarm on my digital watch that's going off. But yeah, so that's the Razer Viper Mini SE. I think it's cool. Kudos to Razer, and thanks for Razer for sending it out. We got some really amazing photos of it and all that. It's just I don't know. They're a fun company to work with. I really enjoy them a lot. Oh, all right. We'll have to do a quick ad read right now. So hopefully this is up to date. So we got a new returning sponsor, I should say, to the podcast. It's not the other one, one of my favorites, but this is actually a really good one too. This is Magic Mind. So they sent me over these. They sell these little bottles. I still have one of them. Actually, I should have brought it with me. This is an energy drink, but not a caffeinated energy drink. And they're like little shots where you can actually just slam it down, or you can actually just put it into water. I personally I think it tastes really good. So I just do shots of it. But the point here was this was founded by a gentleman who, let me bring up his name here, James Bashara. He's the founder of Magic Mind. And the reason he started the company was after a trip to the ER 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with a heart condition. My doctor said that the two main culprits were related: too much stress and too much caffeine. I was running a company of about 50 employees at the time, but my doctor told me that I needed to limit my caffeine intake to 1 cup of coffee a day. Ooh, that's rough. He also mentioned green tea, explaining how it contains antioxidants called catechins and amino acid called L-theanine that slow the body's absorption of caffeine and give you calmness while keeping you alert. And that is very true. It had never occurred to me that pairing caffeine with other compounds could improve its effectiveness, extend its benefits, and decrease stress. So he created this company. So what this has a bunch of really nice ingredients. And I've talked about this before because I'm a big user of what's called nootropics. And I'll just there it goes. So nootropics are naturally occurring either chemicals or things from plants that enhance cognition or give you energy or something like that. Technically, caffeine is a nootropic, but this doesn't have caffeine in it. It's kind of the point of it. So it has L-theanine in it, which is an amino acid. So what a lot of people do is basically you pair L-theanine with caffeine. So if you're one of those people that drinks caffeine and you get the jitters or you get anxiety, if you take L-theanine with it, it basically doesn't do that. It keeps you calm, gets rid of the jitters, and extends the caffeine, which is really nice. There's also Bacopa monare, natural nootropic that helps with procrastination, much like natural Adderall. Studies have shown that procrastination is more based on stress and your cortisol levels, with which coffee spikes. That's also true. Ashwagandha and rhodiola rosea. I've been using both of those for years. Ashwagandha also reduces anxiety. There's also some evidence, and it's not mentioned here, but I'll tell you it. There's some evidence that ashwagandha can actually boost testosterone levels in men with lower testosterone, which if you're over 30, I hate to tell you, after the age of 30, your T levels start dropping basically every year. It's really depressing. And by the time you're in your 40s, it really starts dropping. And of course, in your 50s and 60s, you're like tapped out, basically. That's why there's testosterone replacement therapy, which I'm not on yet, but I'm really looking forward to going on. So, you just have to give yourself a shot every either a couple of days or a couple of weeks. I can do a whole podcast on that. That's kind of fun. But yeah, ashwagandha, supposedly, some research suggests that it does kind of boost testosterone, but it also reduces anxiety a lot. And you see, if you go online, you don't have to take my word for it. Go online, read about ashwagandha. Like, there's a lot of people who take it. There's different varieties of it. Rhodiola rosea is an adaptogen. I've been using that for at least over 10 years now. It actually came out of Russia, and an adaptogen basically helps your body adapt to stress. And it's a good thing like to use later in the day where you're kind of running down low on energy, and you take this. It's not a stimulant. It's not like caffeine, but what it does is it helps your body basically cope with stress and gives you a little bit more of a boost. It also has a lion's mane and cordyceps mushrooms. Cordyceps, you should know that word now if you've been watching The Last of Us on HBO. It's cordyceps are mushrooms. Lion's mane is a type of mushroom, and I actually drink coffee with lion's mane in it, and I take lion's mane too because you can buy it as a powder form. It boosts your clarity and focus. And it also helps with creativity. So all that's in this little drink, like I said, and you can basically slam it down. So what's the sell here? Well, you can go to www.magicmind.co, no M, it's .co, /WCP. And you can also enter the discount code WCP20 at that same website. That's magicmind.co. And you can get a 40% off a subscription. So they'll just auto send you this stuff every month, which is good. Or a 20% off of a one-time purchase offer if you just want to try it out. So go to magicmind.co/WCP and or enter the code WCP20 to get that discount code. We really appreciate it. I think this stuff is great. It's more convenient. Yeah, you can buy all these ingredients separately and as a powder, and you have to measure it out and start mixing it yourself. And I'll be honest, a lot of it doesn't taste great on its own. So when these guys create this little drink out of it, it tastes, I think, really good, actually. It's very earthy, I would describe it as, almost like a tea. It's just way easier and more convenient. You can literally throw this thing in your pocket out, as you go to work and just take it with you, which I think is really kind of cool. So that's Magic Mind. As always, we appreciate your sponsoring the podcast and you guys supporting us. All right, let's move on to the Samsung event. Zach, tell us about the Samsung event and what happened there this week, and I'll go over the laptop part.
Sure. So Samsung held its unpacks. They hold loads of unpacks every year, but this is the sort of air quotes main one. This is the one where they announced their new sort of mainstream phones, and this time around a bunch of Windows laptops, which Dan will talk about in a second. We'll start with the phones because we sort of, even though they are Android phones and technically aren't related to Windows or Microsoft, the partnership between Microsoft and Samsung is still apparent, and therefore Samsung phones are kind of treated by Microsoft as first-party hardware. They integrate the best with Windows PCs, better than the Surface Duo in a lot of instances. So we do think it's important to cover them as sort of first-party offerings for Windows users. So they announced the Samsung Galaxy S23, S23 Plus, and the S23 Ultra. These are, the Ultra specifically, are beasts of devices. This is, design-wise, very much an iterative year. The Galaxy S22 and the S23 very similar. Very minor changes to the actual body of the S23 Ultra. They've made the sides slightly less sharp, I think is how they described it. But the biggest changes with the S23 Ultra are the camera. It now has a 200 megapixel sensor on it for ridiculous high quality photography. They also have an improved, they called it nightography, which is just their version of nighttime photography. I hate the term nightography, but that was their big sort of marketing thing for that. So you can now take photos in the dark, and it does a better job at making those photos not look terrible, which is really cool. And then in addition to that, we have the standard S23 and the S23 Plus. I honestly think the S23 Plus is the happy middle ground. Like, that is, I think, is the better device, because yes, the Ultra has the S Pen and all the other stuff there, but I remember using the Note 10 Plus, and I never used that pen. I would sometimes pull it out just because I have it, but it was never a part of my sort of workflow with that device. I know for some people they live and die by it, in which case the S23 Ultra is there for you. But for everybody else, I think you could save a couple $100 and get the S23 Plus, which is a beautiful device. Again, very minor design changes from the S22. They've changed the camera bump a little bit, but other than that, it's more or less the same. They all have the new Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy, I think they call it. So it's a special edition of the Qualcomm chip that is available in other phones. Very similar to what Microsoft does with its SQ line of processors for the Surface Pro X and the Pro 9 5G. Basically, Samsung went to Qualcomm and said, hey, can we rebrand this and overclock it slightly? And they were like, sure, go ahead. So that's what they've done there. And so that technically it is the most powerful phone on the market currently. And yeah, I'm actually really interested in the S23 Plus. I love the look of that device. I think it's a very clean design. The bezels around the front are all the same size, which is very rare for a phone, an Android phone. I know iPhones nail this. The Nothing phone actually nails this as well. But most other phones have either slightly thicker chin or slightly thicker forehead versus the sides. This one, completely, all the sides are the same, and it looks really, really nice. And of course, it has all those same integrations with Windows. So it has the deep integration with Phone Link. You can do things like connect to your phone's mobile data through Windows Wi-Fi UI, which is specific to Samsung. Even the Surface Duo doesn't have that currently. It also has the ability to quickly launch your most recent apps from the Phone Link system tray icon, and a whole bunch of other integrations. So the only real downside to these phones is that they are more expensive this year than they were last year. But let's be fair,
Right.
everything is. I think they're $100 more or $150 more in
Yeah, I believe
some
100.
regions.
Yeah.
It's a real shame. And also the S20, the standard S23 is a nice size. It's 6.1 inches, which I think is, I know a lot of people consider that small these days, but that's, in my opinion, the normal size phone. The S23 has it misses out on a few things, I think, like its haptic motor isn't as good as on the Plus and on the Ultra. Also, the screen is only 1080p, although I think that may also be the case on the Plus. I can't remember. But yeah, overall, yeah, these are looking great. And also the colors. Samsung seem to be the only OEM who are really sort of doing weird colors again. Like the S23 Ultra has a nice red. They call it red, but it's certainly more pinky, I think, than red. But it looks amazing. Yeah. It's like red and with a black a black frame. Oh, it looks so nice. I want that phone.
Nice. Yeah, I think they look great. It's obviously a little bit less exciting. The 200 megapixel camera is cool. There's diminishing returns, I think, though, with these this megapixel count. I think it's more important the sensor size with these versus the megapixel part. Mm-hmm. But there's always so much that can be done with this technology. This is a category that has become pretty flat year over year with the expected changes. So there's nothing revolutionary here. They do have a cleaner design. I think they look nice. That leads us to the laptops, of course. So they've announced the Book 3 laptops. And these are interesting. For one, well, there's a couple, right? So there's the Book 3, the Book 3 Pro, Book 3 Pro 360, and now there's the Book 3 Pro Ultra. I think I got that right. I'm not sure if it's actually just a Book 3. I think it's just Book 3 Pro, Book 3 Pro 360. And then with the Book 3 Pro, there's two sizes. There's a 14-inch and a 16-inch. The 360, I believe, is one size, and the Ultra is one size as well. What's cool about these is, thank you, Samsung has finally switched to 16 by 10. They were the last holdouts. They were using 16 by 9 even last year. And I was just like, what are you guys doing? And they were only using full HD, but I was totally fine with that because it meant better battery life. Plus they were using their own AMOLED technology. So it was like, it looked really nice, so it was fine. But these are bumped up. These are 14-inch dynamic AMOLED, 16 by 10 ratio, 400 nits, 120 hertz refresh there, Zach.
Yes.
And they're higher resolution now, 2880 by 1800. So these are going to be looking really nice displays. They're not like super light either. I mean, they're light, but they're not like trying to be this absurd, like, they only weighs 2 pounds. I believe they're like 3.5 pounds now. For the 14 and the 16, they're kind of roughly the same. Intel 13th gen Intel. Core i5, Core i7, Iris Xe graphics. So these are still thin and light Ultrabooks, but now they have really good. They also have full HD cameras that have been upgraded. They got the quad 8KG speaker system. What's really kind of cool, and this is I'm trying to still figure this out with the keyboards because the pictures are kind of confusing. I didn't get to see these in person, although, like I said, I have the 14-inch one coming today. So I'll throw some photos of that on my Twitter, and I'll probably even start using Instagram again. But it looks like they're using number pads on all of their laptops. Yeah. And I'm still confused. I think the 14-inch even has a number pad, which is weird. But if you're into number pads, your ship has finally come in because it looks like all of these have number pads on them, which is, they're aiming this at the kind of business user, the creative person, all that. And I know a lot of people do love having number pads on their laptops. They also look like they have giant touchpads on them, like
Yeah.
absolutely monstrous.
They're really going after the MacBook crowd with that, I think. In fact, a lot of I think the Ultra one specifically, I think really is a competitor for the MacBook Pro that Apple currently sells. Of course, it's not going to meet that in regards to silicon. It is only they're using Intel P series, right? No, or are they H series for the Ultra? I can't remember. I think it's H for the
question.
Ultra, right? I think that the Ultra has the H and then the Pro has the P series, which still very powerful on the P series side, but the H one is obviously really where the power is.
Yeah, and that one also has the RTX 4050 graphics, up to 4070 graphics, and it could do a Core i9. So that's the Ultra we're talking about. Yeah, so this is a bigger laptop. I forgot the weight on that one. I'm not even sure we have the weight. I think that's around 4 or 5 pounds though. It's going to be a bigger boy, but that's because it has a 76 watt hour battery, 100 watt USB Type C adapter charger. They still don't use Windows Hello IR for their camera, which is strange.
That's annoying.
They just don't use it, so they use a fingerprint reader.
That bezel is quite thin though, so maybe they couldn't fit it in.
Yep, that's a good point. So the Ultra has a 16-inch dynamic AMOLED, 16 by 10, 400 nits, 120 hertz refresh, 120% color volume, which is absurd, and also has a 2880. So it's just the bigger version with a more powerful processor and dedicated discrete NVIDIA graphics, which is kind of cool to see them going into that market. And you're right, these look very much sort of like MacBooks. Although they have a cleaner design a little bit, and they have number pads. So there is that aspect. And they sell that 360 version.
Yeah, I'd love to meet somebody who is all in on the Samsung ecosystem. Samsung was really pushing the idea of an ecosystem with this event. And it's not that it's new. They've certainly been doing this whole ecosystem thing for a long while between Android phones, and I think they've got Android tablets as well. But they're also really pushing it now on their Windows stuff as well, which is really interesting. Like on this, I'm looking at their Book 3 Ultra product page, and at the bottom is the Galaxy ecosystem. It's a picture of the Ultra with one of their tablets, the Galaxy S23 Ultra watch, and one of their Samsung buds. And it's really interesting how I actually think Samsung's probably come the closest so far to actually creating a fully fledged ecosystem that does also include Windows. Because we know Microsoft is trying to do it, but with their Duo and stuff, it's not really going too well. But Samsung's basically nailing it. And I'd love to know if anyone's in the chat or if you're listening to this after the fact, hit me out on Twitter if you are fully in on Samsung with everything, all their hardware, using it with a Windows or Samsung laptop.
Yeah, I mean, you could be using their earbuds, you could be using their watch, you could be using their phone and their laptop, and a lot of that stuff is now working closer together. At least definitely their phone and their laptops. As you mentioned, the hotspot feature is pretty cool.
It even goes further than that, like with Samsung being an all electronics company, they've got TVs, they've got all actual proper headphones, they've got all kind of keyboard. No, I don't know if they do keyboard. They do monitors for sure. If you're all in on Samsung, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that whole thing and with how it compares.
The cool thing I pointed out in the review, the last Galaxy Book 2 I reviewed, was their software suite. They put a lot of apps on their laptop, but these aren't like bloatware. These are like the same apps you get on your Galaxy phone. Just Windows versions of them, so they sync up and talk between each other, but it's like the same experience you can do. Now you may not use all those, which is fine. You can uninstall them too if you wanted to, but it's actually really impressive kind of what they're doing. I did ask Samsung for an S23 smartphone, and it was actually kind of funny. I just had a funny conversation with their PR because the woman who I'm dealing with, she was like, I made that argument. She's like, we should get them the S23 phone so they can test all this. And they're like, nah, it's Windows Essential. They're not going to be interested in the phone part. Like, which is weird because we've reviewed Samsung phones before on the website, since they're kind of obvious alternatives for people who are looking for those devices. So they're going to try to get me one now, but she's happy because she's like, I made that argument. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're genius. So hopefully we'll get one and I can better test how the synergy between those two devices are. But Samsung's doing cool stuff there. No argument. The other alternative though, creeping up is Lenovo. Lenovo does have their new smartphone coming out.
That's right.
And that works with their ThinkPads. And Lenovo is going to be getting me that phone too, because that and the ThinkPads, I think it's a little bit more nerdy, enterprisey, and focused. But I'm excited about that too, because I think that's a cool tie-in.
Doesn't Lenovo own Motorola?
Yes, correct.
Why don't they do more of that? Like, they already have that line. Why don't they just integrate those as well?
So technically, it's a Motorola phone. It is
Right.
them,
Yes.
but they're branding it with Think. It's a
But I
Think
just
phone,
think
Motorola
it's
Think phone.
I think it's interesting how they had to do a specific Think phone rather than just making all of the Motorola phones just interoperable with their Lenovo laptops. Because I don't see why they'd need
Different
to.
markets, completely different companies.
I guess so.
You have to
Yeah,
remember that.
Lenovo's very businessy, aren't they?
They
Yeah.
operate completely independently of each other. They do
Mm.
collaborate, which is exactly what you're seeing with the Think phone,
Yeah.
but they operate in their different markets. Motorola is strictly consumer, Um, but yeah,
I'd
I'm
love
excited
to
about this.
see. I'd love to see the Dell XPS team do an Android phone.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah, why
amazing.
not? They made
They should.
phones
Everyone
before.
should just make phones. Come on.
I was actually talking with LPR last week. We're doing a catch-up call, and we're just whenever I talk to PR people or even the engineers of these companies, I'll talk for like an hour with them
Yeah.
because we'll just nerd out on all this
Yeah. Yeah.
technology, talk about history and everything. And we're joking around with the Dell Venue Pro smartphone, how awesome that thing was at the time. And like, yeah, I mean, Dell could easily, get back into that if they really wanted to. And maybe they are. Maybe they're exploring that. They should take notice with Samsung and now Lenovo getting involved. HP also has a little history here, obviously, with
Yeah.
their smartphone, which it came out now that HP Elite X3, they did put Android on it at some
Yeah.
point.
They
We're thinking about
considered it.
making the Android version, which is kind of cool too. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see this as a trend. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens just because Microsoft is clearly pushing Android to be closer with Windows, which gives more incentive for these OEMs to do that. And like if you think about it, Android is way more reliable in terms of selling a device than it would be a Windows phone. Uh, but it gives each company a new opportunity to sell something as a package, and maybe
Yeah.
not for consumers, but for their business and enterprise
Hmm.
clientele. Totally, that tie-in, they can, come up with a value play there. I tell you, the Think phone, when you see the software and the tie-in they did with the Think Pad, it makes sense. You're like, oh, this isn't just a phone that has a red button on it. It says Think phone. No, 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 no. It's built like a ThinkPad, and the software that runs on it interacts with the ThinkPad in such cool ways that it's just like, wow. If I was out in the field and doing like business enterprise work, I would totally love this setup. Like this would actually make my work life easier. So there's a lot of opportunity here for that. So yeah, stick a pin in that idea. We may see
Hmm.
more of that stuff coming on. All right, let's switch our attention to review roundup. So you've heard me talk about the Razer Leviathan Pro. I'm even forgetting the name of it now. Razer's names are definitely tough to keep up. The Leviathan V2 Pro. So this is a soundbar speaker system. They've had the Leviathan V2. This is the V2 Pro, and this is the one that fits under your monitor. It's just a bar type with a ton of speakers in there, and then it has a big subwoofer block that goes on your floor. And what makes this the Pro is it has the sound beam forming technology. Basically, it has like an IR sensor type camera in it that detects your presence, and then it shapes the audio to you based in your location in space and time. And it's really good. Like our review gave it 5 stars out of 5. A lot of other reviews were really very positive too. Some people complain about the price because it's $499. I think that's dumb. It's actually what you're getting here. You're getting a 11-pound subwoofer and a 5-pound soundbar. It's a lot of speaker. Like this thing cranks. It goes up to 98 decibels, which is super loud, and the bass is just thumping. Like this thing will shake. It'll shake your floor. It's a lot of power. I experienced it at CES, and like when you sit and put this thing on, they have like a virtual headphone mode, and they teamed it up with THX to do the sound profile. It's absurd. It literally sounds like sound is coming from behind you and around you, all done with just speakers coming at you from the front. It's a really neat experience for gamers. Although anyone who just wants a really good sound system, like listen, nothing's going to beat this thing for a while. No one else is putting little cameras and IR sensors into their speakers so that it shapes the sound and balances it based on your actual presence of where your face and head is in real time. Because of that, this is only meant for PCs though. Like you can't connect this up to your TV. This is only meant for PC and mostly PC gamers, of course. But anyone who's in front of a PC all day will definitely appreciate the audio quality here. So go read that review though. I did the photos for it. I have one as well that I'm setting up. Like I said, when I redo my office, because I'm using the Razer Noma Pros, which is their previous high-end speaker system that came out like 5 years ago. And I have these two big satellite speakers and a really big trash can subwoofer on my floor. And to be honest, they're really good, but they don't do the audio THX virtual surround sound stuff that this thing does. So these are going to be the subwoofer is going to be more advanced. I'm curious though as to oh yeah, plus it has RGB lighting, which is awesome. So, but that's kind of cool. So go check out that review. We also reviewed Hi-Fi Rush. That just came out. That review that was Zach Bowden. They did a great review of this, by the way. If you haven't tried Hi-Fi Rush, this is just a really, really cool game. Cell shaded graphics on it, so it looks like a comic book. Yeah. It's hilarious. It's a music timed brawler kind of thing. So you sync yourself to the music and you do these hits. Did you get to try it, Zach?
Yeah, I tried this game the other day, and what it's done is made me realize that my speaker system, which is it's an LG soundbar connected to an LG TV, but it's ever so slightly out of sync, and I didn't notice it until I started playing this game because it's very rhythm based. You have to time your button presses with the music. And I'm doing it, and I'm like, this isn't working. It's because my surround sound system just ever so slightly out of sync. You can't notice it normally, but in this game, it was something I really noticed. So that's kind of annoyed me. But you're right. It's a beautiful looking game. The music's also pretty awesome. Like the whole time you're there, just like nodding your head to the beat. It's really cool. And also there's a story there. I'm not really super invested in it, but
the story's pretty fun though. Yeah.
No, yeah.
It plays like an anime cartoon episode, basically.
Yeah, it does.
And it's just like, even when like he's not moving, when you're not moving, he just stands there and snaps. Yeah. It's like there's a lot of cool details in it. But it's beautiful looking. It's fun to play. Even as not a hardcore gamer myself, I was just like, oh, this is definitely cool. And just like, it's just so creative and original. Like we haven't seen something like this in a while. The comparisons were to Sunset Overdrive, which came out many years ago, which was a lot of fun. So that's on Xbox Game Pass right now. Yeah. So if you have the Game Pass, just go play it for free. I just downloaded it to my PC because I'm going to try it on there later as well. Of course, you can get it on Steam, and it is Steam Deck certified. So you can play it on your Steam Deck if you want to as well, which is really kind of cool too. But yeah, this came out of nowhere, and it's just we give it 4.5 out of 5. It's just I'm excited about it. It's one of the few games I'm just like, wow, that's actually pretty wild.
Well, what's actually really cool as well is that when you start the game up for the first time, the game actually features licensed music, which isn't good news for streamers and stuff, or people who play this on YouTube. So they actually have a mode where you can go into settings and you can turn off the license. Yeah, streaming mode. You can turn off all the licensed music, and they actually created their own music for this game, which I think is such an unnecessary above and beyond thing that they didn't need to really do, but they did it anyway because they actually care about the gaming community and all that stuff. And I think that's just pretty awesome, especially for a mode where that isn't default. They went through all the effort of actually making music themselves. Who I assume most people won't even hear because they're going to be playing with the default settings. So that's pretty cool.
Yep. So that's Hi-Fi Rush. Go read our review of it. Just see the screenshots of it, and you'll be sold. But yeah, if you're on Xbox Game Pass, like there's no reason you shouldn't be trying this game. Like just like there's zero reason. We also reviewed Age of Empires 2 for Xbox, which is pretty cool because that's obviously a kind of complicated. What do you call those games? Strategy type?
RPG strategy, yeah.
Yeah, RPG strategy. I used to play like StarCraft like this and Command and Conquer. So it's like that, but older. We build empires through the ages. But what's kind of cool about it was it came to Xbox. And the challenge there is how do you do the controls?
Yeah.
Because those are usually keyboard and mouse games where you're binding keys and, doing all that kind of stuff. And the big story here is they apparently nailed the way it works on controller. Like everybody is raving about like, nope, this plays really well on Xbox, and that's a big surprise. So again, Age of Empires 2 classic game now on Xbox, and apparently it's good. You can play it with a controller. So kudos to the team there. I'll also kind of round out the the Razer Edge. So I have that here in front of me. Now you can see it with it not blurred. Let me turn on the screen so you can see it. I tweeted out some photos of it. This is now the Verizon 5G version, which I have. I'm sending the other one to Zach Bowden. They're going to review that. They're actually going to review the actual device. So I won't be reviewing it. But I did an article already on it to share my initial thoughts on it after playing with it for a week. And I think it's awesome. And it's a bit of a controversial type article because there's two counterpoints to the. So if you don't know, the Razer Edge is a handheld device. It's a separate display. That's basically an Android smartphone. It's just very squared but it doesn't run. It runs a special Snapdragon gaming CPU and GPU in it. It's meant for gaming, and it has a little fan and vents in it too to keep it cool. And then it has their Kishi, but it's a Kishi Pro system that connects it up, and you have the controller. So that comes apart, which is really nice if you want to travel or you just want to play touchscreen. You can just do it like that too. The Kishi also has the haptic feedback. It can vibrate and stuff like that. So it's $399, which isn't cheap. Although if you go on Verizon, it's $359, which is kind of funny because it's got the 5G millimeter wave stuff going on in it. So the controversy, of course, is people just go, just use your phone, which I get, and that's totally fine. But even Zach Bowden said this, that the problem with using your phone, and it's one, your phone is now occupied and the controller. So if something comes in, you want to use it, it's kind of a pain to use it. Yeah, you can take it off and all this, but your phone is basically occupied. Two, while you're playing games on it and streaming stuff, you're going to notice your battery draining. And that's not too comforting, especially if you're home, no big deal. But if you're out and about, it kind of stinks. It's like, oh, I don't really want to kill my phone battery. And not all smartphones are created equal in terms of gaming abilities, right? Yeah, they can game, the processor's good, but then it might throttle and because of heat after a while, because that's why there's actually like gaming smartphones out there now. And so that's an issue. So I personally don't like using it. And I just never found, I've had the Kishi, but even with my Pixel 7 here, I have a case on it. I just didn't want to drop it in and like, oh, now I got to do it. This thing, I literally just pick up, turn on, and then I blast right into Xbox Cloud Gaming, and I'm good to go. And because of it, I made this argument that sometimes the best devices in the world for us are the ones that have just one purpose. It just does one thing, and it does that one thing well. And so, a smartphone could be everything. It could be your camera. It could be your gaming device. It could be your email client. But it doesn't do all those things great. Like if I want to do email or write in Microsoft Word, a laptop is going to be better, right? If I want to do photography, the camera is good. My DSLR will still blow away whatever smartphone camera you have. There's just 100. It's not even close still, people. I mean, I'm with the lenses out there and everything, it's not even close, right? And then same with gaming. Like if I want to game, I like having a dedicated device. And that's what this thing is. So I just pick it up, I game. It has its own battery. I don't have to drain anything. And I can pack it away in my bag and put my smartphone in my pocket. I like that. So what about Steam Deck, right? So Steam Deck's the other elephant here in the room. And I love Steam Deck. I'm not going to complain about Steam Deck. I think it's one of the most important things that came out in 2022. And I think the community around it, what they're doing with it, I think it's just awesome. It reminds me of the old Pocket PC days. That said, it's not perfect. For one, it's limited on the games it can play, right? You can play a lot of AAA titles on it, but you got to really knock down the graphics, and the resolution's not very high on it. Yeah, it's a big screen, but your PPI is pretty low. It's like 215, I believe, is a PPI. The PPI on the Edge is like 387 or something like that, so it's way higher. The Steam Deck is also massive, and it's not thick. It's just big. It's like a dinner plate. And the problem with that is as soon as you put it into the carrying case, it's so big. When I drop it in my backpack, it literally takes up half the backpack. And so when I'm traveling, I don't take it with me because I got to put my camera in there, maybe my headphones. Next thing you know, my bag looks like a balloon. And I'm just like, you know what? For something I may or may not even use, I don't have the space. I don't want to carry the weight with me, so I leave it at home. This thing, though, the Edge, it's so much smaller. I can take off the controller part. Like, it's like adding another smartphone. I can just drop it in my bag into one of the pockets, right? It just fits right in there. So I'm traveling next week. I'm 100% taking the Razer Edge with me because of that. So there's that. There's also the fact that, like I said, the display is not as good. The Razer Edge display is 6.8 inch. It's AMOLED. It's a higher resolution, and the PPI is much higher. When you combine that with cloud gaming, And here's the other thing. Cloud gaming, again, not for everyone. I like it. And one of the reasons I like it is I just jump in and play. I don't need to update the operating system. Steam Deck's always getting updates, which is good, right? But you always have to reboot it, do that. Games always need updates. They're always getting patches. You always got things from EA and all this kind of stuff that's running. These games never need to update when you're on xCloud. You just jump in and play, and it's the latest thing. You're also getting console, Xbox Series X level graphics streaming to this little handheld device. And I was playing Jedi Fallen Order. I started playing that like when it first came out, forgot about it, stopped playing. And now, like, I literally hit play. I was right in the middle of a scene. I just jumped right back into the scene. And now I'm playing it, and it's like as good as an Xbox Series X for the quality, but it's on a little tiny screen that's beautiful with this AMOLED 144 hertz refresh. And I know it doesn't stream at 144 hertz, but that 144 hertz still helps in terms of it looks way smoother, right? And I was just blown away by it. And basically this got me back into gaming. I was just like, wow, this is really cool. And I'm about to try GeForce Now. And I've ignored GeForce Now for a while. That's their version of game streaming, for those who don't know. And the reason is, I was like, well, Xbox has that library, right? Because it's just part of your Game Pass. And you just have tons of games. GeForce Now, though, just switched over. They're starting to use RTX 4080 GPUs to power everything. And it can link up to your Steam accounts. It can link up to your, I think, your EA accounts. And it can link up to different accounts. It'll bring in your library. But now you can stream games using a 4080 RTX card, which means you can play AAA titles like almost nearly maxed out on graphics. Do you know what that looks like to play like Cyberpunk? Yeah, you can play Cyberpunk on the Steam Deck. But you know what it looks like on the edge when those graphics are maxed out on a AMOLED display with this PPI? It looks absurdly good, and it's just surreal to be playing a handheld game. And I've been playing on my Wi-Fi network. I've had no issues with latency. I was even playing Hi-Fi Rush. I had no problems playing with it. Obviously, it varies based on your network and all that kind of stuff. But I've been really impressed with this thing so far. I should also mention it has a front-facing camera, which is hilarious. If you're a streamer, you can actually stream yourself.
I was actually going to ask.
Playing.
So obviously this is built by Razer. Did this really sort of spawn from their phone efforts from a few years back? Because it does look like
probably
a phone, right? For the most part.
Obviously, I think some of that legacy carried over. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, Richard Devine has a.
Sorry, go on.
I was gonna say Richard Devine has an editorial coming out tomorrow on the site that basically says that he just wishes Razer would just continue making a smartphone,
Yeah,
which I get. I really like the Razer phone. I thought those were awesome, but yeah, they just need a little. They're not very far from making a phone from this. This is basically
quite literally.
A phone
it literally has 5G. All they need to do is take the controls off the side, and it's a phone. But this goes back to what we were just talking about. Like, I'd love to see more PC makers make phones. And Razer did try the Razer Phone 1 and the Razer Phone 2. Don't know if they did too well for them. They acquired Nextbit, didn't they? That was where that came from. They had the Nextbit, and they acquired those, and then I guess the Razer Phone 1 and 2 came out, didn't do too well, and that's now morphed into this sort of dedicated machine. But yeah, I'd love to see them go back to making gaming phones, because the gaming phone market is what, Acer or Asus, the ROG phone. That's basically the only one I can think of. There's a market for that, I think.
But that's the Razer Edge. Like I said, though, we're going to do a full review. Maybe don't take my opinion on it. We'll see what Zach, what they say about it. But he's been kind of turned they were kind of turned because of using the Logitech G Cloud. And so maybe it's just not me. But we'll see. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe it'll be a flop. But I'm really liking it. And for me, that's all that counts. So I'm just sharing my thoughts on it. Anyway, we can do the thing of the week, Zach, but I'm going to have to take the dog out, unfortunately. I should have done that before the podcast, but she's getting really...
That's okay. I don't have a thing of the week, so...
That's fine. Okay, well, we can do Q&A. You can stick around and do Q&A. I'm just going to head out then. But as always, thanks for tuning into the podcast. We'll be back next Friday. I think we may have some big news next Friday. Maybe not, but we'll see. Possibly. But we record us live every Friday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel at Windows Central. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino. Follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN and ask us questions there. We do have another episode of Ask Windows Central that is up on our YouTube channel right now. So you can go and check that out. We do answer a bunch of your questions there, which is pretty exciting. But yeah, as always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you later. Take care, everyone.
All right, bye, Dan.
Fine. Now she's running around being nuts. All right. I'll catch you folks next week.
All right. So if you do have any questions, I will hang around for a few minutes and try my best to answer them. Oh, I just realized that that's not going to work because my feed was coming through, Dan. Okay, hang on a minute. Let me see if I can get my webcam back here. I don't think I can. That's a real problem. Can I not do a call with myself through Skype? Oh well. If you have any questions, just don't look at the video. Just all you need is my voice. And if there are no questions, then we'll say bye, because that's how that works. When's the next chapter of Windows Unshipped? That is very imminent. I've been waiting to get access to 1 or 2 images of a thing that I'm describing in the post, and I wanted to sort of make sure I can actually post it, so I've been waiting to hear back from somebody. But once I do, that'll be ready. It might be this weekend, or it'll probably be early next week is more likely. But yes, the next one is imminent. They were supposed to be weekly, but that never ended up happening. So yes, any more questions? Does not look like it. So in that case, I am going to head off. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back next Friday. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated for when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time. Bye-bye.